Okay. Well, thank you very much for inviting us. We really appreciate the opportunity to share the work that we've done the last few years. Do you want me to use the mic?
Yeah.
Okay.
You've lost your teacher voice. You've been retired 2 years and you can't speak up.
There, how's that? Too loud. Thank you very much for inviting us. We appreciate the chance to share what we've been through in the last few years. As mentioned, I'm Peter. This is my wife, Diane. What we hope to share tonight is who we are, why we chose to do what we did, and sort of the latest update of where we're at. And maybe the other important part of this is getting feedback from you, because I'm sure you know as much about the dates and people as we do, and we love to hear corrections and additions and no, that date's wrong, you have this date instead. We appreciate hearing all that. So if you want to interrupt at any point and fact check us, that'd be great. We'll add it to the presentation for when, well, I'm not sure we'll ever do it again, so whatever. This is a photo that actually was on the preview. We think this photo's from, I wrote 1905 there. That's my first mistake. I think it's actually 1915.
No, this one again I just got from Ellen today, 1905, and she has all the names as well on this paper. Now this, I have to return this, but I can make copies at some point. So yes, all the names are on there.
Ellen is Ellen Moles, who lives across the street, and they've been incredible. Her mother was Mary, who lived to the early 100s and was a teacher at the school. And Mary's keeping an eye on things, trust me. Ellen, pardon me, yes. Ellen is keeping an eye on things, and as things were progressing along, we kept getting the thumbs up from her, so that was pretty great. All right, so let's move along. So on the left, you see a photo of the school in around 2019. So it was still up. Everyone knows what I'm talking about, right? The Batteaux Schoolhouse. Maybe I should start with that. You know where Batteaux is? Yep. Great. Well, we have a little bit of a history of the area and so on, but on the left is the school as we found it in 2019, and you'd be hard pressed to find it in 2019 because it was so overgrown. You had to really know where it was and look through the trees. And then on the right is a photo of it taken recently, and this is what we've done, and it's an absolute tear-down replica of it. So the brickwork, the choice of brick, the styling above the windows, the shape of the windows, everything we could do to make it authentic was not spared, including having the doors and windows custom made so that they matched the original specs. Where are they? Okay. So just a quick note about ourselves. We started as math teachers in 1991. We were both in Barrie, and I grew up in Stayner, and we would drive to my parents in Stayner almost every weekend to ski. And wouldn't it be great to retire here? And we love this place. And if you knew my mom, Diane Millsap, yes, hi, how are you? She would not be happy that we moved to Collingwood, let's just put it that way. There were two places we were never allowed to move to, Collingwood and Creemore. So we ended up in Collingwood, unfortunately against her wishes, but nonetheless, our plan was to retire in Collingwood or in the area, but a job opened up at the school in Collingwood in 2008, so we made the jump and didn't regret it. We lived in town until we moved out to the schoolhouse a couple of years ago. So things accelerated a lot. our plan was to combine our teaching background with our love of history. And again, if you knew, my mom was one of the inaugural members of the Stainer Heritage Society, so local history was a big part of our lives. I did the Stainer Heritage Society newsletter for years, so I knew a lot about it just from typing it out. We always wanted to move to a one-room schoolhouse, and there are many, many, many in the area. And for some reason, they didn't quite fit the bill. They were too close to the road, wrong location, a little too small, needed too much work. But for some reason, the one in Batteaux was the one that we had our eye on. Why is it going backwards, Diane? For whatever reason, the one in Batteaux was the one that we wanted. Maybe because my mom and dad square danced there in the 70s, and that's a photo of my mom, Dorothy Ann. I don't know who the guy is. It's not my dad.
I think it's Gord. Didn't we think it was Gord Bishop?
Gord Bishop, possibly? Greta, do you know?
I'd have to be closer.
Yeah, well, maybe on the computer screen.
Yeah, it's pretty dark from there.
Well, it's tall enough to be Gord.
We're gonna find out right now.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Gord Bishop, there you go, okay. Well, that's not so bad, then I'm not upset about that. Yeah, my mom and dad were square dancers there in the early 70s, and I remember as a 4-year-old or something like that going to a Christmas party there and being frightened by Santa, and as luck would have it, the person that has the fireplace contacted us and said, I still have the fireplace from the old school, from the square dance parties, we'll get it to you, but we haven't seen them since, so maybe one day we'll get that. So that was part of it, why this school was speaking to us. Also in the 80s, when it changed hands, it became a community hall, which is a loose definition for party house, and predominantly stags, and you would remember that. You could appreciate how little care they took of the place. Holes in the walls, and that just invited more holes in the walls, and there was no bathrooms, so you can imagine what happened then. And but again, it was just part of growing up and part of the 80s. And Pilkey, Steve Pilkey, he works with pumps at a Cooper's State of Rental. And so he came to install our water pump and said his stag was the last stag at the school. So local history. Quite a few people my age or a little slightly older had their stag there. And close to town, but not too close, off the road. Just it ticked all the boxes. But it wasn't for sale. So somehow between the 70s and then the community hall days in the 80s, and whoever owned it after, and I don't know if you know the answer to that, we'd love to know it. We know who we bought it from recently, but it was never for sale. We drove by once a month, it seemed, wondering if it was for sale. In fact, there was a sign, I don't know if you can see that, it says no trespassing, not for sale. That was on the tree out front. So it's interesting. I think they had a lot of offers and a lot of interest, and for whatever reason they were tired of the offers and the interest, so they put this sign up. Nonetheless, we kept driving by, and 2018 or 2019? 2019 in May, Diane said, I drove by the school. We just called it the school. We knew what we were talking about. Drove by the school, there's some activity there. So, this is not a great picture, unfortunately, either, but you'd be hard-pressed to see the school with the trees. You can see the outline there from the sky, but it is really, really overgrown to the point where Diane noticed that they'd taken all the trees away. So for some reason, they were cleaning it out. Maybe they're selling. So we called our agent, yes, indeed, they're getting ready to sell. It's going on the market Monday. By Monday night, we had bought it. A bit of a leap of faith, to be sure. And another but is on the way here. Well, it needs a lot of work, that goes with it. That's the side view of the kitchen. So this is on the north side. The road's to the west. This is on the north side looking south. On the left, you can see a hole in the roof. That was the addition of the kitchen that they put on in the stag days. And it already had a hole in it, and yeah, it was in really, really bad shape. A couple more shots. That's the front door, been painted, crumbling away. Holes in the bricks where, that's Diane in the picture on the left, and there's holes in the bricks that they patched.
This was all decrepit.
You know, to be buying something with the plan to restore it, it was going to be a lot of work, maybe too much work. And HDTV wasn't going to pay us to do it for an episode, so. But the other major but was that it was being demolished. So what had happened was the furnace in the basement had an oil tank. The oil tank rusted. The oil that was in the tank leached into the soil. It was just a soil basement at that point. So we were effectively buying a vacant lot, a 1 acre lot. And we had a lot of questions about that. We found out that the sellers had chosen to demolish it as the easiest route to clean the soil, which interestingly enough was not the story that anyone else knew. They thought we were demolishing it, which is not true. In fact, the neighbors referred to us the first time we met them as those people from the city. I guess they thought Toronto, not Collingwood. Those people from the city tearing the school down, which is how they greeted us. And so we had to set the record straight that no, not only does it have to be torn down, probably financially it was their only route to get underneath it and clean. I think they said they took 17 trucks of sand out and replaced it. But we thought for a brief moment, why not just replicate it? So it was a challenge because we had like a week before it was taken down. We bought it knowing all this. We had about a week. We went in the evening, we took camera, we took measuring tape. We didn't even have a ladder. We were measuring the width of the windows. We were measuring, I think there's a better picture here. No. There's pillars on the side. We measured how wide they were, how far apart they were. And later, when we shared the pictures with our designer, Garth Wilson, he counted the bricks on our photos to get the heights. We couldn't reach the heights without a ladder. So, especially at the front, when we did the 3 windows at the front, their heights are based on how many bricks he counted in the photos, which is kind of interesting. So that was our plan.
Smart man.
Very smart, absolutely. And also the fact that we could kind of pay homage to the building and the history, but we could make it our own, make it a little bit more modern, obviously replace the electrical, there was no plumbing, replace the electrical property and the roof and so on. So we decided to go ahead, and I'll turn it over to Diane. This is more about the steps we thought we had to go through to pull it off. So do you want to work from over there?
That's fine. The steps. Am I reading this now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the Thursday night, my son Adam and I drove by and saw the chips they'd had
tore down some trees around the house because they needed to drill down to see if the soil was, that's what I saw, the chips from the bushes that they had torn down. So I think it was the next day we were at the library looking to see anything we could find. And that picture, which is in Ellen's book here as well, is the earliest picture we can find. And we believe, I'm not sure, is about 1893, we believe, is when it was started. This other picture, there's two little blurbs. We have two different blurbs. One says that it was closed in 1963 and the students were sent to Duntroon. I believe that's what it says on that one, but that is incorrect. In 1963 it was closed and the students went to Baywood, which is where the
Drive-in is, with the old
the old drive-in, and the Kinsmen, Shriners have that schoolhouse now. See, you should still be talking. So, so there was a 6-year gap in there where the students went from Batteaux to Baywood and then to Duntroon. And the other little duotang there, the red one, is from Baywood that we got from Ellen's mom as well. So here's a little insert. I'm not sure I'll read it all, but this was in her duotang from the Batteaux School. And she says, I taught at the Batteaux, was SS20, as they'll have numbers, SS20 Nottawasaga. And if you've driven by our place, you can see as well, there's still the rectangle at the top that has nothing in it. And most schools that you go by, they have SS-Batteaux or Nottawasaga in them, so it says what number they are. And our school actually never had that plaque. However, there is that kind of square opening for it. So none of the pictures, anybody we asked said there was never a plaque in there, but we are having one made to fit in that rectangular area. So if you're driving by and you wonder why there's still a piece of plywood in there, it's on the list. So SS20 Nottawasaga so this is from Ellen's, from September 1929 until June of 1932 at a salary of $1,000 a year. The trustees during that period were Mr. John Rentner, Sr., Mr. H. Ross, and Mr. Harry Richardson. Marion Ross was the secretary-treasurer. As was their custom, I was to live in the community and be part of it. My brother and his family were living at the Batteaux, so I boarded with them. For 2 years, my inspector was Mrs. Garvin, I believe that says, and for the 3rd year, it was Mr. Marshall. The school consisted of a large classroom with a teacher's room at the front between the 2 porches. So again, when you see the pictures, there is, very unique is that extra little piece that's off the front that had the 2 doorways, and
Part here, the lower roof.
the lower part. And so we have that kind of as a bit of an homage to the schoolhouse, and I have a little museum in one of the corners there of those 2 round doors, although we don't use it as our main entrance. So that's between the 2 porches. The windows were at the north and south side. Someone had glazed the lower half of the panes. My first job was to remove the glaze so the children could see out. I had about 30 pupils in grades 1 to 8. They were good children with average ability. We took part in the school fair in Duntroon in September. In December, we had a Christmas concert. We celebrated Arbor Day and Valentine's Day with parties after the work was done. At that time, the members of the United Farmers Organization met in the members' homes. An elderly couple took me to the meetings, which closed with a social hour. Reverend Hunt, a young man, was the minister for the parish of Batteaux, Duntroon, and Singhampton. He directed 2 plays, Marrying Anne and Wanted a Wife, played by the young people at the Batteaux. It was during the first play that I met my future husband. The women of the church met in their homes in the winter and the cottage during the summers. I was invited to the meetings, arriving after school in time for lunch. In 1929, the stock market crashed and Great Depression followed and continued until the war began in 1939. It was called the Dirty 30s. Work was scarce and wages were cut. I was to have a big cut, but my inspector suggested I go to the Kirkville at $900 per year, so that I did. I enjoyed my time at the Batteaux. One of the highlights was being able to watch my first niece, Betty May Chase, grow and to tell her stories. So those are some interesting stories from that time. Which one?
Just right, left click. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So again, these are just some things we found at the archives in Barrie, some research that we did. This is the one on the left that tells about the Baywood. So this is the pictures we took when we went out to measure, as Pete said, and I should have somewhere in my piles of things just hand drawn. So he'd be out there measuring, and I just had a piece of grid paper, and I was writing, 10 foot, 1, 2 foot, and we did the best we could and as high as we could, and reaching up to measure the windows. So that's basically what Garth went off of there. And you can see the pylon there. That's where they went around. They had 4 or 5 of these pylons around where they were measuring what was in the soil there. Again, taking some smaller pictures of individual things so we could see get the detail correct. Some of this was painted white, so we made that the beige brick that you see now. So some of the detail around the door was really just painted that way, so it wasn't necessarily exact. And then that was the drawing we came up with. So when you go by the schoolhouse, anything that is brick is original, and then anything that has white siding is not original. So we did add that third little dormer there on the top, and that has 2 little extra bedrooms and a bathroom since we have 3 kids. And the 1-room schoolhouse made it rather challenging to kind of break it all up. We didn't want to break the main layout up into all these kind of small rooms. So there's 2 bedrooms up in that top little piece. And above the garage is also a little apartment, which we lived in for a while. And we have some people stay there in the winter for ski season. So that was a bit of a part of our retirement plan as well. So it started. Finally, 2020, shortly after COVID started. I think luckily we had our wood before it went too crazy. I think 2021 was when the prices went really crazy, so we survived that. We have some drone footage of the shape. There's our foreman making sure the workers were doing their job. That's a nice one there of before it has all the stuff on it. And the steel roof, we kept the steel roof, the look of the steel roof. The one that they had actually came in little, they were kind of like 2 feet by 1 foot panels, and they kind of had these nice little scallops on them, and they were all kind of put together. They were very rusty and got demolished as they tore it down, but we couldn't find anything like that, so, but we did go with the steel roof. So that was last April's coming together. And back to the picture. So this is the same picture that we had at the beginning, but it's kind of been colorized. So we bumped it, people have reached out to us on our Facebook page, and we've met some interesting people. So this was Jack McAllister, who was local at one time, and I believe someone he knew taught at the school as well at one time, but he's in Barrie now, and he invited us over, and he had all sorts of pictures, not necessarily all of our school, but and he had colorized some of them. So some of the ones that you see that are colorized are his work. The other thing to notice is the bell on the roof. That's nowhere to be found. We couldn't find that bell, and we do have a school bell that we have since purchased, and we are going to put it in the front in the landscaping on a yoke separately, so it's not going to go up on the roof like that. Would you like to take it back over? Sorry.
You'd be interested, probably.
Yeah. You have the bell.
Really?
You where it was.
Oh.
Oh.
Well, there we go. Okay,
Okay.
we'll talk to you later.
My checkbook.
Yes, you remember it went.
Yeah.
You know where it went,
Yes.
but you don't know if he has it yet.
Well, I think it's still there.
Okay, well, we'll
Oh,
talk.
that's good to know. Yeah. Might be hard getting it up there, but we'll put it on the front
Figure it
lawn. Yeah, so these pictures, we have quite a few of these class photos and with names in them. You've seen them in the Collingwood paper and so on. This is also a contract of a teacher. This was a fellow who reached out to me as well, Doug Foster, I believe. His mom taught at the school, and this is from 1928 to 29, I believe, and same thing for $1,000 a year. So he sent that to me, and he says he has some other pictures, but he couldn't get them to me before tonight. But so yes, here are some more colorized photos. The one on the right is 1947, and the one on the left, Pete, do you see
A
the
little earlier,
date
like
on?
42 or 43.
Yeah, she is holding a sign up there. I can't see it.
You're in that picture?
Oh.
That's incredible.
That I lived that long, the right one or the left?
No, it's incredible that I
Where are you, Jack? Which one's you? Which one are you?
Where are you?
Where are you?
Probably the littlest guy there, John Houghton is, John, yeah, I think so.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, that just made this whole presentation worthwhile.
Yeah. What am I doing?
Other click, other side.
Oh, am I going backwards?
Yeah.
There we go.
I learned the hard way too.
Okay. So to finish us off, we just have some kind of side-by-side photos to see what it looks like. So I think you saw this earlier on. This was our original photo. Again, so there's the doors that we had done by some Mennonites over towards the Waterloo area. And the windows, so the fellow who did the door, his cousin, Mennonite cousin, and over Waterloo Way, a little further down the road, did the windows, and they did a lovely job as well. They're quite fancy on the inside as well. You have
Might
to.
be easier on the computer, but the white here and the white is all, like Diane said, painted, but it is beige above here. And credit to the bricklayers, they took it on as a real project to make it as authentic as possible, so we're pretty grateful for that.
Ryan Pilkey started that work, and then his helper Sandy finished most of it, and especially the stuff around the doors. He would go home at night and measure it out and lay it out, and so.
Pretty remarkable. Under a tarp in February.
Yeah. And lastly, these are some of the inside photos where we tried to keep some of the old but mix it in with the new. So on the far left, again, sorry these pictures aren't showing up too well, but we have 3 large lights above the island, and the globes on those are from the schoolhouse. So that's one of the things that we have. Again, I'm not sure what era that would be, at what point they ended up having those light fixtures in there, but so that's one of the things we were able to salvage. On the middle there, I have an old farmhouse sink in one of the bathrooms. It's not from the school, but I felt it was the right era. And then we finally, just the other week, got our chalkboard up, slate chalkboard that we've been moving around for a couple of years. Very heavy. It's not from the original school. That was already gone by the time we were there. Those darn boys throwing beer bottles at it probably, but it is, I was told when I bought it, it was from the old Admiral Collingwood school over on here, Ontario, there by the Scotiabank, so that's what I'm going with. And so yeah, we had a nice frame put around it, and haven't got any math lessons up on there yet. And lastly, in our bedroom, if you've been on the Facebook page, you've seen some of these photos. I have an old wood burning fireplace there in the corner. It's not, doesn't work, and it's not going to work, but it's just somewhat decorative. So we have some old touches like that throughout the inside, some old doors that we've refinished and so on. Oh. And that's the end. I'll just maybe walk you through some of the things we have up here, and you can take a look after. We have the strap. So if you know as Pete mentioned, Charlie, who was our neighbor, he went into the schoolhouse and dug around in the 70s when they started doing the renovations the first time. So some of these items he gave to us over the last year. So this is the last strap, he said, from the schoolhouse. It has the little hole on it there that was hung on the side of the teacher's desk. And I believe he said the last teacher was Wyant, perhaps? Maybe it belonged to Wyant. Maybe someone can correct us on that, or we can get it written down. I think that's what it was. This is an old little math book. It is not from our schoolhouse, but a friend of mine gave me that for decoration in the house. It's as a housewarming gift, so it's kind of cute to read the questions. Again, from Charlie, one of the old pencil sharpeners. Again, not that old, from what era. Some inkwells that he found in the soil when they were digging around, and his old slide rule. And just some photos of more of the demolition. And this is a photo of Ellen and her sister Lenore in front of the schoolhouse that we photocopied and put in that. That's the 1905 with the names, and there's a 1922 and a 1915. So there's lots of little things to peruse there. Yeah, so that was wonderful. Thank you very much for having us. And if you have any stories or information, I have my computer here too. I'll frantically try to jot some things down, so we have some stories as well to pass along. Thank you. Yes.
I noticed the Batteaux spelled two different ways, Batteaux.
Yes.
Any idea how that
I don't
came
know
about?
when it changed, but originally it was without the X, because Batteaux is, it's named for a boat, a flat bottom boat that they used on the river there, on the shallow water, and at some point they added the X, I'm not sure when, but which is weird because that just pluralizes it, really, I believe, the X.
And did the property have a backstop on it for the Bob kids baseball?
Yes,
Still there?
it's still there, it's still there.
We played there as kids years ago. We'd
Yeah.
go from Nautilus
Yes.
School, go
It
to.
kind of points right at the school. I'm surprised that they would hit it in a not great window or whatever, but
Kids at the Batteaux couldn't hit it very far.
well, that's funny the way you said that, because any local would call it Bata.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not Batteaux.
yeah,
It's always the Bata school.
yeah. Yes.
Did you ever get a chance to salvage much building materials from the old school?
Not really. We have about 500 bricks off to the side. The caustic fellow, he sold a lot of those before we had a chance, but we did salvage some, and we had some big plans for them, and then the contractors couldn't quite work them in, so we're not sure what we're gonna do with them yet, but yeah, that's about all we have.
And then the push here, there.
Were you planning to also reconstruct the outhouses? There must have been two of them.
Oh.
One for the boys and one for the girls.
I've only seen a really close-up picture of the wood siding. But I don't know how many there
I assumed there
were.
were boards. I went to a two-room school, and they were just boards,
Yeah,
like
Yeah.
up and down
up
boards.
and down, you went in behind.
And they were both two-seaters, at least the girls was.
Well, the picture we have, I didn't want to get into too many details, but it's of a little, grade 1 or so having to pee against the wall.
Okay?
I don't know, don't really love the picture, but that's, we're
Part of
told.
the history.
It's part of the history,
Yeah.
but I guess it got a chuckle at the time when somebody had the idea to take the
And the
photo.
pencil sharpener, I recognize it, it was also used in the 50s. Whether it's older than that, I don't
Oh,
know,
wow.
but we had that kind of a pencil
Wonderful.
sharpener in the 50s.
Yeah. Yeah, well, between the slate and the pens and the inkwell and then
Oh, yes.
pencil sharpeners would have shown up at one point too, right?
Are you collecting desks to use as furniture? Because they're
Yeah.
really interesting.
I think we have 4.
Yeah.
We have a few, we have one out on our, we have one on our front porch.
Yeah, so like the little seat and then this,
Yeah.
yeah,
Are there any other questions? If not, I'd like to ask David
Oh, I
Ripley to
did-
come up.
oh,